Welcome to today's episode of The Black Sales Professional. I'm your host, James M. Fields, and today I have the distinct pleasure and honor of interviewing Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson, if you'll recall from my first episode, I was talking about having to reinvent myself. And Patrick Peterson was very instrumental in allowing me and giving me the ability to reinvent myself. I wanted to make sure that I brought him on and had him have the opportunity to speak to you guys, because Patrick brings a unique perspective in getting into the sales, starting his sales career, and the fact that he came from operations over into sales as opposed to starting directly from sales. So, Patrick, welcome to today's episode and the show and the Black Sales Professional podcast.
Good evening, James. Glad to be here with you this evening. We've been through a lot. It's been about 10 years since you came over to electronic security, and I'm glad that I was there with the organization that we were both with to kind of lend you as much support as possible.
Well, great. And I definitely, like I said, I really appreciate all the help and support, because, I came to the industry. For those of you who don't know, I came over from the security world from selling software. So for about 12 years, I sold software and services tied to the software, outsourcing of HR, payroll services, and benefit administration. And so when I came over from ADP, after being let go from ADP, and came into the security world, I had to start from ground level, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing with regards to engineering a solution. And this gentleman here really took me under his wings and taught me everything that I needed to know, and has allowed me really to be able to flourish. And so, Patrick, do the audience, do me a favor and share your background and what led you into being into the sales career that you've been in for the last 27 years.
I came off of active duty military, United States Navy, and within the Navy I had done information technology. So going out into the civilian world, I wanted to find an occupation that I could exploit my talents and actually look to move up the ladder. So I originally started in the alarm industry with the largest global security provider, 3 letters, it begins with A. So they started me off in emergency dispatch, quickly moved me over to technical support. And from there, I was given an opportunity to go into management, operations, and administration. So during those years of working directly with the client base and resolving issues and ensuring that the things that they purchased on the front end worked according to specification and their needs, and maintaining that relationship in a post-sales world for our sales department. In doing so, a lot of the sales managers thought that I had the ability to communicate effectively with people, and knowing the systems, I would be a shoe-in the sales department. So in 1999, I decided to move over into national account sales, and I've been in sales since then. So looking at 22 of the years in sales.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So now, coming from operations and going over to sales, um, is definitely a different type of path, but I think it's one that leads itself to making people very successful, especially in the technical side. Because, like I said, when I came over, you know, when I came from the software world into this world, I knew how to sell, I knew how to manage sales processes and all of that stuff, but what was unique about it was having to engineer the various solutions. So, you know, with software, hey, I didn't have to worry about putting anything together. It was already designed. I just had to worry about whether the system could be configured and whether it ran on the operating system and platforms that the customer had. Whereas now I have to worry about all of those other aspects. I have to worry about making sure it runs on the right platform. They have the right hardware infrastructure to utilize the system. But now I got to worry about the number of conductors, the wiring, the all the parts and pieces that make up the system. So kind of let me know or tell the audience, did that kind of make the transition over to sales a little bit easier for you?
Sure. When you're in any kind of technical sales where you're literally selling equipment, uh, the more you know about the equipment itself and how it actually functions, uh, the better off you are in sales. Because at the end of the day, you're selling credibility and you're selling the fact that you're the product expert. And when you go in as someone who's been on the operations side, as you know, and understands from an engineering perspective, the level of conversation that you're coming with is more informational and conversational than it is scripted. I found that a lot of salespeople that come into a technical field, uh, they learn the scripts, and the scripts are great. It gives them the opportunity to uh, fully advertise the company to new potential clients. But when you're dealing in technology, that only goes so far. Your ability to be able to construct and deconstruct in some cases to reconstruct becomes paramount when you're sitting in a room of C-level uh, professionals and decision makers and stakeholders. Those in the room want to know that they've made the right decision and you become the voice of the company that you're representing.
Now, as one of the things that you taught me that has stuck with me for the last 10 11 years that I've been in the physical security systems arena, was a concept of being an engineer first and a salesperson second. You told me that, you know, right away. You said, hey, James, you have great sales ability, but but you got to understand something. If you want to be successful in this job and moving up the ladder at the higher levels, you have to learn to be an engineer first and a salesperson second. Can you tell our listeners what you meant by that?
Well, there is a tiered system in sales, entry level sales to enterprise sales. And, as you matriculate that ladder, your ability to become more the subject matter expert is based on your intimate knowledge of the products that you're bringing forth as solutions to problems for customers. So as you matriculate up, it becomes more mandatory that you're able to first understand what they have and what they need and how you get them there. And as a salesperson, if you have no technical background in the products that you're selling, it makes it very difficult for them to believe that you're a product expert. So if you walk in with engineering ears, I call them engineering ears. You can walk in with sales ears, and you're looking for the sale. Always be closing. Like the first sign that you can get to the close, you shut up and sign the contract. That's all fair game in some settings. But for you to get to that, there's a litmus test in technology, and that's what you're selling, that you must pass first as you matriculate up that ladder. A residential alarm system is different from, let's say, an enterprise solution that spans 4 or 5 continents with regional servers around and a common database for 20, 30,000 people in 18, 19, 20 countries. The level of expertise is totally different. So it, as you matriculate up again from being a low-level salesperson to a high-end salesperson, and let's face it, that's where the money is. For you to do that, you have to have some engineering understanding of what you're selling. The more you do that, the closer you are to the customer. The customer then believes that you're the right person for the job.
You also made a point of letting me know that, or one of the things I should say, you told me, and I found, and I've seen it firsthand, is that of course, if you don't engineer a solution properly, you're going to run into some real issues. And being a salesperson, um, you are the person that they remember. If you misengineer a solution, they're not going to come to you and say, hey James, you know what, it wasn't you, it was the company that you represented that made the mistake. Or they're not going to tell the next person that, hey, it was so and so that didn't do this correctly, such company that didn't do it correctly. They're going to come back and they're going to say it was James Fields, he was our security integrator, and he didn't properly design our solution, and now we're having a bunch of issues with it. And it kind of actually goes back over into where I came from in the beginning, because I remember having a conversation with you previously, and I was at a grocery store, and I ran across um, my the one the CEO and owner of a company that I sold my first $100,000 deal with. It was a lady by the name of Gwen Duncan James and her husband, and they were in the grocery store, and she recognized me, and she introduced me to her husband, and she explained that I was the individual that sold them the telephony time and attendance system that allowed them to expand their business without having to open up all those offices. And she told me, she said, James, that basically I helped them grow their business from being a couple $1 million to double-digit $1 million, and solely by being able to by selling them that telephony system. And that it was a godsend, and she thanked me for it. She said it worked wonderful, and they've been using it for years. And so those were the type of things that you know you want to be on that side of the conversation, as opposed to being on the side of the conversation where you're sitting across the table from somebody, you're seeing somebody out in public, and they're coming up to you and complaining about a system that you installed, that the communication system isn't working, or whatever the case may be, or they're constantly having to call service for. So I definitely have taken to heed the that actual theory of that you gave me, of be an engineer first and a salesperson second. Matter of fact, I've passed it on to the various sales professionals that are just now coming into the security world, and said, hey, this is what my mentor has said, and you know what, you got to make sure that this is the way you do things, because it will only make your life much easier and happier. And
Well, let's
so
face it. Let's face it. As African American salespeople out in corporate America, when we walk through the door, in I won't say in all cases, I'll say in most cases, the question is if you're the right person, not because you've opened your mouth yet, is that you showed up. And the best thing that can always happen is you take the focus off of the fact that, black African American female or African American male walked into this you know, mostly white corporate environment, uh, representing a company that is going to provide a solution for this multi-million dollar company. When you walk in, if you walk in a salesperson and you don't have the technical expertise to carry a room of stakeholders, that becomes very apparent real quick. Conversely, when you do, they surprise themselves more than you're surprised because they saw color at first and then they see professional. And that's the credibility side. And as you said, James, years later, it wasn't about the company or the system itself. It was about the fact that you engineered, you brought them a solution that worked for them. And that's what they remember.
Absolutely. And Patrick, being in this industry for the length of time and seeing the success, because one of the things I want to let the audience definitely know is that you definitely know your stuff. You have you've you've sold small systems, and you sold enterprise, large, complex systems that you've designed from the ground up. And so, being as an African American, kind of share with us some of those stories and challenges that you faced, even though you did end up selling really large opportunities.
It's funny because one comes to mind immediately based on this conversation so far. And it was me coming in to an enterprise solution, existing enterprise solution as the national account sales manager. And I remember when the vice president of enterprise took me to this very large technology company that starts with an M, and actually MS. Uh, when I walked into the boardroom with all of their technical people, the security director, after we made the introductions, said, "I just want to be up front." And he looked at me, he said, "Do you know this particular system?" He said, "The last guy we had, nice guy, didn't know how to engineer systems, and we just don't have time for people that don't know what we need them to know. So honestly, do you know it?" Well, the answer was yes. I know this particular platform on the enterprise level. Yes, I can design and engineer. From there, we went forward with a tremendous relationship. And, was that question posed to the last guy? I could tell you the last guy that was their national account manager was an African American. So, that could go one of two ways easily. One, they saw a black guy walk in and they want to vet him immediately. They don't even want to give him a chance. Look, you don't know this. There's no sense in you being here. Don't waste our time. Don't waste your time. We don't need you. Or it could have been that the last guy did such a lousy job that, walking in the door, they don't want to go down that road again. I think it was a bit of both, but it just gets back to the fact that as you matriculate up, your ability to understand the products that you're selling. You're not selling widgets. You're not selling hammers and nails and inanimate objects. When you're selling what I'd like to say are organic life forms, computer systems are organic life forms. If they go down, they take everything down with them. It's not, this one thing happened and we can live with it. In some cases, it could take the whole system down. So you understanding all of the technical aspects of what the product lines you're selling will actually sell for you. That's why I say go in as an engineer first, Once everyone likes you, you can become a salesperson. At that point, you get the contract because that's what you're there for. But it goes in technology. That is the way people buy from people they like and they think are technically sound, especially if they're signing a $200,000 or $1 million contract with you, and there are other stakeholders in the room that you lobbied, and said this is the right guy. You got to make sure you make them look good as well, and that provides for a long-term relationship that's fruitful for everybody.
Yeah, you made a very good point, and that was about the fact that when you walk in the door, we have to know what we're talking about, and especially from a standpoint of being African American, we have to be very, very well versed on what we're presenting to a particular client, because potential client, because they're going to challenge you. They're going to ask you questions in different ways and things of that nature, just to test. And in some cases, they're going to, if you tell them something different than the person who came in before you that doesn't look like you, they may not always take that take what you say to be true. And so you're going to have to come to the table, and you're going to have to prove it. Now, once you've gone through and you've proven what you're saying is correct versus what the other person, now you've earned credibility, because they probably, you've had to produce the information to say it or to show it. And then they're going to start buying, they'll start trusting you a little bit more and things of that nature. But as long as you're saying what the other person said, you're going to go, okay, yeah, uh-huh. But the second you say something that's different from that person, they're going to make you prove it. And my mother, when I was very young, my mom told me a lesson. She said, hey, she says, you know what? She said, in this world, being an African American, you can't just necessarily be even or the same as or just as good as someone who's white. You have to make sure that you know your stuff better and that you are better than they are, because otherwise you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. So as an African American, when we run across African Americans who are successful in sales, our hat should be tipped off to them, because the truth of the matter is that they didn't just get opportunities and to close opportunities. They really truly had to earn all the sales that they obtained, and so they did a very, very good job. Now, one of the other things about this podcast is it's we have individuals who are considering entering into the sales arena. And I don't ever like people to think that everything is all peaches and cream, and that, hey, all I need to do is know the things I need to know. I need to hit my numbers every month, and annual numbers, and everything is going to be good, and I'm going to be treated just like everybody else. Because the reality is that just because you make your numbers every year and you do the things that they may tell you that you do, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to actually be treated in the same way that everybody else is treated. And so Patrick, I know that you've had some situations, and I have as well, especially in the security world. Kind of share with the audience some of those that experience, and how you overcame it or avoided it or what have you.
Well, I can tell you, just as a African American sales professional, uh, in many different industries, as I know different sales professionals across the sales gambit, but I can tell you very specifically in the security industry, uh, your your elevation or your matriculation doesn't naturally, it may not be organic. It may not be, you've met your numbers, uh, you've done a good job, you've been a team player, and an advancement opens up, and most companies try and fill from within, and you're the next viable candidate, And based on your performance, you are automatically considered and given that position. That doesn't happen. It hasn't happened to me. It hasn't happened to any of the African American professionals as we matriculated up the ladder. There is a glass ceiling in corporate America in sales. Once you hit a certain sales level where you're dealing with directors and presidents of companies and CEOs and C-suite management, there's a belief that uh, somehow your abilities can't close the deal. And they fear that there may be some backlash because now you're the voice of the company, and when you walk in, people see what they see. So it's a glass ceiling, but you can break through the glass ceiling with your knowledge and technical expertise and your sales ability. It's just not set for you to have a natural, very organic climb when you're doing all the right things because of your color in a lot of situations. And one very specifically, I sold the largest video surveillance platform, single location in this billion-dollar company's and it was, the facts are facts. So it was Stanley Security Solutions sold the Chicago White Sox their major video platform, which was a $1.3 million direct sale for that, and then the follow-on maintenance for it, which pushed the deal over $2 million. When I closed the deal, which the purchase order had attention Patrick Peterson on it, I went down. It was signed and handed to me. It was processed the next day. A lot of accolades, news flashes, sales news flashes, high fives, a bunch of things happened. But when it came down for me to be promoted to the next level up, which no one had any sale like this before, I was passed over. There were 6 openings, and somehow my name didn't appear on it. And it took me threatening to go to the competition in order for the company to do the right thing. And, it's just an indication that may have happened to someone that where we have to threaten to leave um, in order to get their attention of what they're doing. And so I tell you, don't let it dissuade you, let it motivate you in understanding the game. Don't hate the players, hate the game. That's what corporate America is. We want it to change, but as long as we understand it, we can matriculate it, we can advance through it, and we can stop those that attempt to prevent us from moving up based on fact.
Tis true. Tis true. Tis true. Like I mentioned, like you said, it it happens, and I went through it. Some of our counterparts have gone through it, and we've ended up having to make a change and go from one company to another in order to move ahead. So, the one takeaway that I definitely want to make our listeners aware of, if you're going through this type of situation where you make your numbers and say you're seeing other individuals being promoted, especially if you're in a position where you have tiers, and they're being advanced, because by going through in the security world, the tiers are tied to the level of systems that you're able to sell. And so if you're stuck at at a lower tier, tier 1 or tier 2, those are the type of sales that you're going to be dealing with, the smaller, easier sales, and you're not going to get the experience necessarily in selling the larger deals unless you partner with somebody, because the company's not going to trust you until you get there. So, if you're going through that, you have to recognize it early on. And what I ended up doing was I went and had the conversation and brought it to my manager's attention. Did it change things? No. but at least I got him to say, if you do this, then this will happen. He ended up being removed out of the sales position, and I still wasn't on the list. And not only did I do what he asked me to do, so I was at a tier one, and he asked me to sell tier two to move to tier two, and I didn't just sell tier two. I had the third highest sales of a tier three. I was over $700,000, and yet it took another person coming in saying, okay, we need to give you the opportunity. We need to move you up and give you another opportunity to advance. But not without pushback. They started asking about, well, what about that deal or those deals that got you there, and whether maybe it was a fluke and this and that, and tried to hee haw around. And I was like, hey, look, I did the numbers, and and I brought the deal to the table in the first place. So um, it's all those things finally got them to say, okay, you know what? You deserve. If you do it again, I'll move you up to where to the tier three. But unfortunately, or I should say, fortunately, um, I was going through an interview process and then been put on hold, and so I ended up getting a call because they unfroze the position, and I moved over to Kratos and a company called Kratos. And what was really interesting was uh, my first year with Kratos, I made the circle of excellence, which was anybody who sold over 110% of your quota, and your quota was $1 million. Well, my quota was $1 million, I should say. And so I sold 117%. So 1.17, $1,179,000. And that same regional vice president had come over to Kratos and saw me at the award ceremony and spoke to me and was telling me, he says, you know what? Wow, you really did do what you were supposed to do. So not only did you sell $700,000, that was the year before, but now you sold almost 1.2 million. Congratulations. So my message to everyone is this: you know, sometimes you have to move in this business in order to move ahead. So don't just feel like, hey, there's a glass ceiling and I'm gonna keep hitting my head up against the glass ceiling. Once you get tired, find yourself a way to move around it. Find another company that's willing to give you what you deserve and give you the opportunity for advancement, and continue doing that. If you have to go to another company, continue going up the path and until you reach your ultimate goal, because it is possible.
100%.
So Patrick, you know, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to to allow me to interview you and to share your story with our listeners. I really do appreciate it, and I hope, and I'm definitely going to have you come back, because I want you to. There's some different topics that are more specific that I think people will need to hear about, that you're really really good at, and I want you to share your information with. So by all means, I hope that you're open and willing to come back onto the podcast for at a later date for other episodes.
James, I look forward to coming back because the knowledge that we have as senior sales professionals in a lot of different occupations and trades, the information that we have that we can pass down to the next generation would be information in most cases they would not get. The understanding of how to matriculate and climb the ladder and understand, technical sides of house, if that's what, the type of sales you're involved in. It's our duty and responsibility as being those that have made it through the system to reach back and help as much as possible. So at any point in time, any of the listeners that are junior salespeople and they're coming into this particular industry, please reach out and know you have a network of talent that can help you climb the ladder and understand the environment you're in. So I do look forward to coming back. Enjoyed this evening, and I wish everyone listening all the luck in the world in their profession.
And so, everyone, one of the things that I definitely want to make you aware of is this: Patrick is has already accepted and is in the LinkedIn group. We created a community group in LinkedIn called Black Sales Professionals. Um, take the time to shoot him an email, to shoot him a message on there, start a dialogue with him. I'm quite sure that he's open and willing to answer any questions that you may have. And if you're looking for a mentor or a coach or anything of that nature, just go ahead and reach out to Patrick, connect with him on LinkedIn, DM him, message him, because, like I said, he's a wealth of knowledge, especially if you're in the security industry. I mean, like I said, this guy really assisted me. I mean, to sell a single project that where the dollar value was over $2 million. Well, I mean, hey, it's great a task, and I know I was there when he was doing the engineering, and so it was he put in a lot of work. He designed the system from the ground up. Very knowledgeable. Also, if you haven't done this yet, please go ahead and subscribe to this podcast, because we're going to be having other individuals like Patrick who can enhance and help your career, as well as various other episodes or content during other episodes. And you don't want to miss any of this content. Every week there'll be something that you can put into practice and use to help with your professional development, or just put in your toolbox for knowledge. But there'll also be some interviews and things of that nature, of people sharing their stories to help you move further in your career. Um, as always, you can find the podcast on Apple iTunes. You can get it on Spotify, and you can also obtain it on Speaker. Now, we have the video version of this on our YouTube channel, Black Sales Professionals. So if you want to see and hear the videos, because on some of the episodes there may be some other content that's tied to the podcast. So if you're not riding in a car or something of that nature, you can pull it up in front of your computer. I would advise you to go ahead onto YouTube, view the interviews, view the episodes there, and there may be some smaller content out there as well on the videos for you. But the one thing about Black Sales Professionals is that we're here for the explicit purpose of helping develop and support you in your career. So, as always, until next time, take care.